I could have never imagined, back then, that I would cross paths with them again and uncover the shocking truth that unfolded. My name's Ashley and I'm 35 years old. For the past 10 years, I devoted myself to being a full-time wife, supporting my husband Sam with unwavering dedication. We don't have any kids, but we always told each other that our love was more than enough, that having children wasn't the only way to live a fulfilling life. But then one day, Sam changed. Looking back, maybe it was just his true nature finally coming to surface. You see, my parents divorced when I was little, and I was brought up by my dad. When I was a teenager, my dad finally told me why he and my mom split up. He said it was due to incompatible personalities. Back then, I thought it was such a trivial reason to end a marriage. After all, everyone has their differences, right? But as I grew older, I painfully realized that differences in personalities, differences in core values, could indeed lead to a divorce. I had to face this harsh reality when my father was tragically killed in a car accident last year. My father, who used to run a construction company, was a craftsman at heart. Even at the age of 70, right before he passed away, he was still actively working, and his experience and skills were highly regarded by his clients. His business thrived, even during economic downturns. He was also endorsed by the church community as a master carpenter. His unique techniques of building church using timber fitted together without nails was among his area of expertise. My father, with his dexterous hands, would always cook for me after work. Even now, I'm grateful for all the love and nutrition he provided me.
What's important is not what you get in return from others, but how much joy you can give to them,
he often told me. I try to live up to these words by devoting myself to my husband Sam. However, after my father suddenly left this world, Sam seemed to change drastically, as if revealing a hidden side of him. Our conversations never ceased, but they often turned to the topic of my father's inheritance.
With your dad's inheritance, we can build our own house, right? We can finally move out of this old apartment and into our dream home.
I never mentioned to Sam about using my father's inheritance to build a house. I had planned to save it for our retirement. Moreover, I just couldn't use the money my father had worked so hard for to raise me as a single parent. My father was a serious man who never gambled or squandered his money on frivolous activities. Because of this, he left behind a significant amount of wealth. Up until now, I had always been open with Sam about everything. However, seeing the glint in his eye as he eyed my father's inheritance, I found myself lying about the exact amount. We can't afford to buy a house. My father must have spent a lot on drinks and pachinko because he was lonely. There is much less left than you think, Sam.
But there's still enough to build a house, right?
No, there's not. We might be able to buy a rundown second-hand house, though. Sam looked as if his world was ending. His eyes were lifeless, like those of a dead fish. It was my first time realizing how money could change a person. I even began to doubt if Sam had stayed with me in hopes of getting his hands on my father's inheritance. However, about 6 months later, on a weekend while I was doing chores and Sam was watching TV, he said,
I have something to tell you.
For the first time since he proposed, he was addressing me with a serious expression, and I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. I sat down across from him, and as I observed his face, a tear streamed down his cheek. What?
I've made you feel bad by acting like I was only interested in your dad's money, haven't I? We don't have children, so we should have plenty of time to enjoy together, but I haven't put any effort into it. Thank you for always being with me without any complaints, even though I leave all the housework to you, and we rarely go out on my days off.
Upon hearing these words, I felt a mixture of joy and regret for ever doubting him. Tears of joy mixed with tears of regret and fell heavily from my eyes. The look in Sam's eyes as he gently hugged me was the same as when I fell in love with him. As I felt his warmth radiate, Through my body, I truly felt glad that I married him. From that day forward, no matter how tired he was after work, Sam would always help me with my chores. On his days off, he would even try cooking dishes that he had never cooked before. He didn't get upset even when I was strict with him. Seeing him overcome each challenge made my heart flutter. I felt proud that I had chosen him as my husband, and we lived each day as if we were newlyweds again. But then, 6 months later, things started to change when a letter arrived in our mailbox. Here, this letter was in the mailbox today. It's for you, Sam. Sam opened the envelope carefully with a pair of scissors.
Wow, it's been 20 years since I graduated from high school. I've been invited several times, but I never went.
The envelope contained an invitation to a reunion from his high school friends. I knew he had been invited to these reunions several times since we got married, but he had always declined out of consideration for me, who had no connection with his classmates. I told him that he should definitely go this time. Don't worry about me, you should go and have a good time with your classmates. After some hesitation, Sam decided to attend the reunion and began preparations for it, which was scheduled to take place in a month. Sam, who rarely went out with anyone other than me, didn't have any stylish clothes and his hairstyle was a mess. He told me that because he could be completely open with me, he didn't feel the need to dress up. Well, I have always been a bit clueless about fashion, and I believe that it's what's inside a person that matters, not the outside. However, since the invitation to their reunion arrived, our dates turned into a tour of men's clothing stores, and I found myself tagging along every week. I realized that his sudden interest in fashion was because of the reunion, but ever since that letter arrived, Sam would often come home late from work. He usually arrived home by 7 p.m., but it became common for him to come home past 9 p.m. He insisted it was due to overtime, and I couldn't verify if his words were true. Sam was the one managing our financial statements, and I hadn't seen them before. I also didn't want to call his company as it felt like I was doubting him. 3 days later, with 2 weeks left until the reunion, Sam returned from work and sat me down in the living room chair to share some news.
My sister, Michelle, she's just broken up with her boyfriend she was living with. And now she's staying at a friend's house. But the friend's husband is coming back from a business trip next month, and she'll have no place to live. I have to do something for my sweet little sister.
I completely understood Sam's concern for his sister. I have a younger brother who's currently working overseas. Even after I got married, I worried about him and often contacted him. He's a dependable guy, just like our father, but he's too nice and easily deceived. I felt like it was my mission to protect him, so I wanted to help Sam's sister, but since the wedding, I hadn't seen or contacted her. I felt reluctant to use my father's inheritance for someone I barely knew, so I kept quiet.
Ashley, didn't your father love helping people? Yet why won't you help my sister?
My premonition was right. Sam wanted to help his sister using my father's inheritance. He desperately asked me to give a part of my father's inheritance to Michelle, but I was firm in my decision. I told you before, I have no intention of using my father's inheritance. I decided to save it for a time when we might really need it. Then Sam muttered, "Huh," and locked himself in his room. Since then, he started avoiding me. We would have meals together, but he never initiated conversation, and no matter how cheerfully I tried to talk, a cold atmosphere remained. 2 days later, I was looking at cakes in a pastry shop trying to improve Sam's mood. It was then that I felt an odd gaze and turned around. There stood my ex-boyfriend, the one I dated when I was in middle school.
Is it you, Ashley?
Even after 20 years, we immediately recognized each other, which made me burst out laughing. We had lost touch since high school, and I had no idea what he had been up to, but it was quite something to meet him here. He had recently returned to our hometown and was appreciating its charm. After buying our cakes, we decided to catch up at a cafe.
Ashley, you haven't changed a bit.
There is no way. It's been 20 years, and you haven't changed either. This exchange felt out of the ordinary, and I found it exhilarating. We talked and laughed for a while, but when the conversation turned to love stories, his expression suddenly darkened, and I didn't know how to respond.
I recently broke up with my girlfriend, and all I do is regret it.
Why did you break up?
I couldn't provide her the emotional support that she needed.
For a moment, the word cheating crossed my mind, but what he said next was something even I could deeply understand. It seems his ex-girlfriend has always had a weak constitution and can't work long hours, so she has only ever worked part-time. Despite knowing this, they started dating. But as he became more and more successful in the marketing industry, she felt she couldn't keep up with him and chose to step back.
I have achieved success in my work and can provide a luxurious life, so I told her she shouldn't blame herself even if she can't work much. But she never listened to me and cried all the time.
Hearing this, I felt that he was at fault. You're just bragging about yourself and putting pressure on your ex-girlfriend. I'm sure she didn't want a luxurious life but felt lonely because you were too absorbed in your work. Apparently, because of his busy work schedule, he would only go home twice a week and he didn't even text her daily. Hearing this, I could painfully relate to his ex-girlfriend's position and couldn't help raising my voice. How did your ex-girlfriend put up with this? If I were her and this kind of neglect went on, I would have broken up with you. No matter how busy you are with work, you have been too neglectful. And you knew she couldn't work. Why didn't you care for her more? The truth is, something similar happened between me and my husband. Around our 3rd year of marriage, I was dealing with infertility treatments and ended up in a depressive state, both physically and mentally drained. Despite this, my husband, who claimed to be busy with work, never once asked me if I was okay. He apologized and improved after I expressed my hardship, but that painful memory still haunts me to this day. Seeing how desperate I was, my ex-boyfriend seemed to realize his mistake. He said he wanted to get back together with his ex, but lacked the courage to act on it. Not wanting to leave him in trouble, I offered my help. In return, he listened to my grievances about my husband, and we spent our time together fruitfully. That's what I thought, but a shocking revelation left me stunned.
She has an older brother, and his wife is really cold-hearted. Despite being a stay-at-home wife, she doesn't do any chores and squanders money on night outs. Apparently, he's considering divorce, but she won't sign the divorce papers.
That's terrible. I can't believe he's still putting up with her.
I think so too. That's why he's secretly planning to let loose at an upcoming reunion.
A reunion? The word rang my bell. Comparing the details about his ex-girlfriend's brother and my husband, the shocking truth emerged. His recent ex-girlfriend was none other than my husband's sister, Michelle. We were both left speechless by this bizarre coincidence. We shared everything about our domestic situations, and he began to get angry on my behalf.
Your husband is lying. He's using his sister to get to your father's wealth?
We decided to tell my husband the following day. My husband finishes work at 5:30 p.m. Counting backwards from his usual arrival time of 9 p.m., he should leave his office around 8:20 p.m. We watched as he left his office 10 minutes past his regular time and headed towards an unfamiliar mountain. He stopped at a log house and we spotted a woman embracing him with open arms. My husband had been cheating on me in this hidden place? Realizing that it would be difficult for us to gather solid evidence, we decided to hire a professional private investigator. After that, we returned to the local area without assaulting the log house, devised a strategy in the car, and when we acted from the next day, another unforgivable truth emerged for me. Looking further into the log house, we discovered that my husband had bought it for $70,000 in cash, hiding the money from me. To add insult to injury, a woman with children was living there.
To repay his debt, he was planning to use my ex-girlfriend, who is his sister? I'm glad you didn't give him the money, Ashley. If you had, it would undoubtedly have been spent on his mistress.
You're right. I never thought he would hide such a large amount of money. It feels like he's mocking me. Maybe we should confront him together. My ex-boyfriend agreed with me and reached out to his ex-girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend, crying, asked why he had contacted her, but when we told her what we had found out, she immediately wanted to meet me. The next day, the three of us had our first meal together at a family restaurant, our eyes lighting up at the long-awaited reunion. "I'm sorry, I haven't seen you since the wedding. My brother told me not to meet you because you hate me." Wait a minute. I never said I hated you. I even suggested to Sam that we should go on a trip together with you. The realization that it was Sam who had caused the rift between Michelle and me made me angry. From the beginning of our marriage, Sam was a liar, and I blamed myself for trusting him. The tears of regret spilled out uncontrollably. I suppose seeing me in this state must have brought back some emotions for the two of them. In the end, the three of us shed tears together as the quiet moments passed by. Speaking on behalf of my ex-boyfriend, I conveyed his feelings to his ex-girlfriend. She admitted, "I have a strange kind of pride. I ended up envying my boyfriend who was more capable at work than I was, and as a result, I couldn't be honest and rely on him." It was a horrifying realization that a minor misunderstanding or assumption between a man and a woman could lead to a major tragedy. From then on, they swore to speak with consideration for each other, and they got back together. Oh, I'm relieved. I was wondering what to do if it didn't work out, but I'm glad everything turned out fine. Despite the trouble my brother has caused, thank you for helping me. Now it's our turn to support you. 3 days later, it was finally time to strike back. The day arrived when my husband was going to a reunion. I started packing my things as soon as I saw off my husband, who was in a good mood since morning. The reunion was going to be held at an inn about 2 hours away by car from here, with an overnight stay, so the deadline was the next evening. I scheduled to make it in time. Thanks to the help of my ex-boyfriend and his girlfriend, I had extra time and was able to throw away the photos of my memories with my husband. It's strange how love works. I felt refreshed, even though those were photos I cherished so much. What we decided in our discussion was to sell this house first. It was heart-wrenching to sell this house, a memento of my father, but I'm sure he would understand. The following morning, I asked a moving company to transport our belongings to my husband's parents' house. When we three went to my husband's parents' house and told them the truth, they were furious, saying, "We don't remember raising a villain who deceives his sister and wife." They said they would cut ties with their son but treat me as their real daughter. That day, we all spent a pleasant time at my husband's parents' house. And then the next day, I got a call from my husband saying that the reunion was over and he was coming home, and just as I expected, he said this. As soon as I put it on speaker so that everyone could hear, my husband's quarrelsome voice echoed through the room.
"Hey, let me ask you again. You're not going to give me the house even though I want to take care of my sister, right?"
"No, I'm not."
"Then get out of the house by the end of today."
The old me would have cried if he said something like this, but at that moment, not a single tear came out. That's because I now have strong allies, my ex-boyfriend and my husband's family. "All right, but you can only stay in the house for another 3 days." My husband was silent for a moment, seeming unable to comprehend the situation.
"Huh? What do you mean? It's your father's house, right?"
"Don't try to respect my father now."
"I'm going to buy souvenirs. Let's eat together."
My husband suddenly started trying to please me, but it was too late. 3 hours later, he called again, panting and flustered.
"Hey, where did you go? There's only my stuff left. What's going on?"
Then the next moment, my husband's sister screamed at the phone, "It's disgusting to try and turn Ashley's house into a love nest with your mistress." At his sister's sudden shout, my husband seemed confused and the room fell silent for a moment. 3 seconds later, my husband spoke in a voice that was almost screaming.
"It's Michelle, right? Well, why are you with Ashley? What's going on?"
"I have nothing to say to a brother who betrays his wife without hesitation anyway. I'm coming home now, so wait." After saying this, Michelle ended the call and headed to our parents' house with the divorce papers I had signed. An hour later, she returned with the divorce papers signed by my husband, Sam. Thank you. This is the end. Our family home will be sold in 3 days, and I'm receiving alimony from Sam. I never thought my life would become this chaotic, but it's for the best. Since then, I have been staying at my ex-husband's family home, focusing on studying for the caregiving certification I have always wanted to pursue. My ex-husband sold the log house he owned and seems to be living quietly in a small apartment with a woman he had an affair with. I feel so refreshed now thinking if you're satisfied with such a man, go ahead and have him. I'm confident that a better person than my ex-husband will come into my life. As I tell myself, keep going, Ashley. Every day I'm living a fulfilling life.